I still remember my very first meeting with Rabbi Labaton. It wasn't what I expected. At the time, Hillel Yeshiva High School was struggling. There were issues. And I sat down with him, and he was brutally honest with me, almost discouragingly honest. What do you want to do this for? All sorts of issues, this, that, the other. And I walked out of the meeting, and I told my wife, I said, wow, boy, did I get an earful. I didn't expect it from a rabbi. Figured much more political talk. But no. But what was amazing was not that. 6 months later, November of my first year in my position at the high school, he said to me, Rabbi Bald, I have to run back to the shul. He had just finished teaching one of his classes. Would you mind walking with me in the parking lot? I said, sure. We start walking, and he says to me, I was wrong. I didn't know what he was talking about. I was wrong. I said, what were you wrong about? He said, I want you to know whatever I told you in our first meeting, I was wrong. I am so proud of what's happening at Hillel Yeshiva. I am so proud of everything that's going on. I should never have said what I said to you. And I thought to myself, wow, what an ish emet. What a truthful man. He was like David HaMelech saying, Chatati, I made a mistake. He didn't have to say anything to me. I'll be honest with you, that conversation was long forgotten by me. But it wasn't forgotten for him. And if he had never said another word to me the rest of his life, I was in total awe. And as I came to know him much better, and especially to observe his teaching, I am always reminded, and still am reminded, of the statement that the Rambam, how he formulates Ahavat Hashem, the love of God, the third mitzvah in the Rambam's counting of the 613 mitzvot, actually the third mitzvah taseh, where the Rambam says the following: the mitzvah of love of Hashem includes that we should call all humankind to his worship and teach the proper belief in Hashem. For if you love Hashem, through your understanding and realization of his true existence, behold, you will, without a doubt, call out to the ignorant to teach the truths of Hashem that you already know. And in the language of the Sifri, and you shall love Hashem, cause human beings to love him, like Abraham, your father. Rabbi Labaton had an almost fanatical desire to teach the truths of Hashem and the truths of Torah. For 8 years, I watched him walk into the high school building. Sometimes you could tell maybe in his gait whether he was undergoing chemotherapy or he had recently undergone a surgery. But he walked into that building with the same singular purpose: to build those two mizbechot, those two altars, in the classrooms of Hillel. Nothing could stop him. Nothing could diminish his desire to teach, nor his love for his students. Probably that's why the students loved him so. Not just for the quality of his teaching, but for, as I said, that almost fanatical desire to share Hashem's Torah with them. Some of you may know this, that secretaries and administrators were scared to call into his classroom. He ignored you. if you asked for a student to come downstairs, you can guarantee the student was not coming downstairs. It wasn't because of any ego, but simply the way he loved teaching, his recognition of its preciousness, and the realization that probably he knew better than all of us of the shortness of time, the value of time, that it shouldn't be wasted for anything when one is engaged in eternity, when one is engaged in Torah teaching. Rabbi Labaton was also a parent of Hillel Yeshiva. I did not have the privilege of being the head of school for his first 3 children, but Mordechai was in my shiur for 3 years. I don't have to tell you that Rabbi Labaton, by virtue of his position and knowledge, could probably have been a very difficult parent. He never was. He never failed to show appreciation to all the faculty of Hillel, and I felt it very much on a personal level. I will share an intimate thought with you for a moment, that of course every parent has a great desire that their children should value their lives, value their parents' lives, and value what parents are into. For Rabbanim, that sense is heightened by the fact that we spend our days in Torah, in teaching others. And how much so we want our children, they don't have to become rabbis, but how much we want them to value Torah, and that Torah should be part of their lives, where they become professionals, businessmen, whatever. It's a very acute sense by those of us who are in the rabbinical field. I want to tell you that many times Rabbi Labaton would come over to me and he would say, "It's amazing what you're doing." You know, he had that, you know better than I do. And I'd say, "What's amazing?" He said, "No, the kids are into Gemara, they're really learning, it's really great." And I would, of course, in my false modesty, say, no, I'm just, teaching over the same methodology that I learned, from my Rosh Hashiva and from Rav Soloveitchik. No, it's not just the methodology, it's how you do it. You have to know how to do it. The kids really like it. And then he would pause, and he'd say, and Mordechai really likes it. I can't begin to tell you, I'm an experienced educator, 30 plus years. But just hearing that from him meant so much on a personal level. And little did he know how privileged I felt that I was able to participate in his and Emily's child's life and to play a small role in his appreciation of that great world that Rabbi Labaton loves so much. I'm going to conclude by telling you that his passion for emet precluded him from ever playing politics. I saw that just in a very small way during the 5-6 years that I came here teaching the early Minyan class. I heard things, I witnessed him in action. He could not play politics because he was the Ish Emet. He was the truthful man. He spoke the truth, he preached the truth, and he always acted based on those truths that he was privileged to perceive. He really lived up to the Rambam's words, hear the truth, regardless of who said it. His great love of chesed, tzedakah, u'mishpat, loving kindness, righteousness, and justice, stemmed from that great love of truth that he had for all things God. And I know, probably not his favorite pasuk, but up there was the pasuk of Ko Amar Hashem, Al Yitalel Chacham B'Chachmato, Va'al Yitalel Hagibor B'Gvurato, Al Yitalel Ashir Ba'oshro, Ki Im Bizot Yitalel HaMitalel, Haskel V'Yadoa Oti, Ki Ani Hashem Oseh Chesed Mishpat Utzedakah Ba'aretz. For only this may one glorify himself, contemplating and knowing me, for I am Hashem who does kindness, justice, and righteousness in the land. For in these is my desire, the word of Hashem. Our community, our yeshiva, his thousands of students were privileged to observe such a man who so heroically lived up to the great words of the prophet of the Navi Yirmiyahu. I have lost a friend. I've lost a unique and great colleague. And we have all lost a giant of a man. In the words of the prophet Yirmiyahu, if only my head would be water and my eyes a spring of tears, so that I can cry all day and night. Yehi Zechro Baruch.
Hazak Baruch. We've heard from two rabbis. Now we're going to hear from two family members, and then from a few lay leaders, getting different perspectives, different views of the rabbi. Now I'd like to call upon the rabbi's nephew, Mr. Ezra Hedaya. I speak on behalf of the entire family.
Honored rabbis, Grandma Doris, my parents, family, and friends. I am reading this speech on behalf of my sister Betty Estes, my brothers Alfred and Jack, and myself. Our beloved Uncle Ronnie, otherwise known as Rabbi Ezra Labaton, had a unique combination of facets to his personality that we were able to enjoy and appreciate over the decades that we shared with him. As children, we were enamored by Uncle Ronnie's childlike, playful, creative, and curious personality. He was so unique because people that are well-learned, scholarly, and who know about the intricacies of the Torah and the world around us are usually very serious and are not adept with connecting with children. But Uncle Ronnie was different. When we were young children, Uncle Ronnie created a cast of imaginary characters to entertain us. There was George, who lived under the bed, Mr. Ujabu, who was always coming to visit, and Mr. Clockley lived under the stairs in the basement. He used to play with us and used to entertain us for hours. He was so innocent and playful, characteristics that he never lost. All the holidays came alive when we spent them with our uncle and his family by Grandma Doris's house in Deal. We mostly remember the Passover Seder's when all the children gravitated towards him, towards his side of the table, and he would tell us stories of the Haggadah and quiz us, giving us small prizes from the 99-cent store for getting answers right. We constantly asked him questions on the story of Passover in Yitzhak Mitzrayim, and we thirsted to hear his answers. Then when we hit the afikoman, if my uncle could not find it, we'd get a present. Jack remembers Uncle Ronnie taking him to Toys R Us to get a football when he could not find it. And I remember getting into trouble for putting the afikoman inside the dusty vacuum cleaner bag, which seemed like a good idea at the time. Everyone was important to him, both young and old. Betty recalls a story about her daughter, Sari Esses, who was in kindergarten at the time. She used to leave messages for Uncle Ronnie and on his voicemail. And we'd call her back and chat with her for a long time about school, animals, and other kindergarten stuff. Uncle Ronnie's playfulness carried on into adulthood. At Grandma's 80th birthday party, by my parents' house, he, with Sarah and Dora's help, put together a fun and exciting game of Grandma Doris Jeopardy, in which we competed on how well we knew about Grandma Doris, her life, and her experiences. That afternoon was an unforgettable memory that is stuck in the minds of the entire family. As we entered adulthood, we were able to appreciate more and more of our uncle, how he taught the Torah, the vast extent of his knowledge and wisdom, his expertise in science, history, philosophy, and psychology, his ability to connect his ideas from different disciplines to illustrate the wonders of our Hashem's world. He loved to recount the size of the galaxy, the Milky Way, how many stars were in our galaxy, the distance between the galaxies, and the number of stars and galaxies in the known universe, which was extremely difficult, if not impossible, for the human mind to wrap itself around. He wanted us to try to understand the vastness and grandeur of the universe so we could better attempt to comprehend the vastness and grandeur of Hashem. He was very passionate about learning and teaching. My brothers and I remember him preparing us for the BJE high school entrance exam in the original West Deal Shul. In his office right off the front door. We each went through the same routine in different years. We would ride to his shul by bike after camp with our svateno and sit with him going through the workbook, with him teaching us the material, while he continually stopped to field calls from rabbis, community members, people that needed his ear to discuss problems, or people dropping by to discuss shul business. It was then when we first got an inside view of what it meant to be a community rabbi, with its demands and the dedication it took to be a master at it. He dealt with everything that came up during our study sessions, but it would always come back to us. We remember him constantly spending time preparing for his classes, and the vocabulary that he used expounded his enthusiasm. Words such as astounding, profound, fascinating, that's amazing, and good news for the Jews were words like these filled his classes. And he was even known to coin words like kedushify. Uncle Ronnie never discarded an idea until he could understand it, analyze it, and evaluate it. What I realized recently is that his approach to religion played a large role in my life and my children's life. Some of the outlooks consist of attempting to know God better by appreciating the world that he created, understanding his Torah, being a good person, treating people properly, questioning different ideas and points of views in an attempt to get closer to the truth while respecting the other point of view. He once asked me if I knew what the biggest challenge to the synagogue was, and I guessed finances, poor attendance. He shook his head. He said the biggest challenge is when people came to shul and prayed by rote, that people should be able to understand the prayers and use it as a tool to connect with our Creator, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm going to make an attempt to understand the prayers better and pray with more focus in his memory over the course of the year. I saw my uncle solve people's problems and challenges by listening to the whole picture of a person's situation, understanding the person, and trying to help them without being absolute. When it came to halakha, he did not jump to conclusions, saying, no, you are not allowed. He believed it was easy to say no, but that was not good enough. So he first wanted to analyze the situation, understand the halakha, its purpose, its spirit, and what it was trying to accomplish, and then make a halachic decision. He loved world Jewry and always made us aware that we were part of the Syrian community, and our community was part of a Jewish world, that we should think of our fellow Jews, respect them, and do our best to help them. It was such a privilege to have our uncle as part of the family, because he was there for all our family occasions. He was at our brisses, our bar mitzvahs, our weddings, our children's brisses, our children's bar mitzvahs. He taught us our bar mitzvah part. He taught our children their bar mitzvah parts. He gave us advice on marriage and relationships. He recommended books to read to improve our relationships. There is one still on my reading list called Love is Never Enough, which I plan on getting to soon. Even when he was sick, he was there for us. He surprised us by staying in Brooklyn for my daughter Sarah's Sabbath by my parents' house. On Shabbat, we went to Beth Torah. It was nice to see him back in the synagogue of his youth, the synagogue that he grew up in, and it was the last time that I saw him there. I had the honor of him conducting my daughter's naming ceremony that Shabbat, naming my daughter after his own sister, my mother, Sarah Hidayah. I was amazed because he was asked to speak, and he spoke strongly and passionately about us as Jews facing evil in the world, and our responsibility to counteract it. Many months later, when I was visiting him, he told me that Shabbat, he was asked to speak a few minutes before he spoke, and I was astonished at how quickly he was able to formalize and crystallize a speech of such relevance and clarity in such a short period of time. A few weeks before his passing, Dale and Daniel Levinson had a bris for their son David in Brooklyn by Auntie Robin and Uncle Eve's house. Uncle Ronnie was on FaceTime on Obadiah's iPad. Rabbi Harari gave the honor to our uncle to name the baby. Obadiah held up his iPad, and Rabbi Harari held up the Kiddush cup for him, and Uncle Ronnie recanted the blessing and named the baby David. It was so meaningful for us to have him there, and we appreciated his presence. Even though he was not doing well physically, he made it a point to be with us, for which we are forever grateful. He touched us all. The respect that he had for his mother, Doris, and father Alfred was unparalleled, and an inspiration to all of us. He also adored his sister, Sarah, my mother, and Auntie Robin. My mother told me that after he passed, she went to listen to her saved messages on her voicemail, and all the messages were from her brother. Sari, just going to say hello. Sari, just going to see how you're doing. And Sari, thank you for making the Hanukkah party and keeping the family together. With all his responsibilities to the community, he still had time to spend quality time with his family and to be there for us. Of all that he left us with, the greatest of all was leaving us our Aunt Emily and their children, Sarah, Gabi, baby Ezra, Devorah, Micah, Obadiah, and Mordechai. We cherish them and appreciate the time that we spend with them, and always look forward to continually being with them. Thank you for listening, and I hope that I gave you a more personal dimension to Rabbi Ezra Labaton.
Now I'd like to hear from another nephew, Daniel Levinson.
My family and I would like to thank you all for joining us today to remember my uncle, Rabbi Ezra Labaton, alav shalom. My uncle was a remarkable person. He was a leader of this great community. He was a doctor of philosophy. He was a man of God. And lastly, he was my Uncle Ronnie. From a very young age, I remember summers in Deal, spending Shabbats with Uncle Ronnie, Auntie Emily, Sarah, Obadiah, Devorah, and Mordechai. Shabbats were always different in the summers, mostly because Shabbat dinners were shared with the Labaton family. Saturday lunches were always spent analyzing and debating the speeches that my uncle had made in shul that morning. He had a remarkable skill to spark conversation. He would challenge the congregation to look at the week's parashah in a global current context. Stories that took place thousands of years ago, reborn to teach us life lessons applicable to the 21st century. It was a Levinson tradition to spend all of the high holidays right here in West Deal Synagogue. My uncle made the holiday meals come alive, teaching us, telling us stories about the holiday, teaching us the laws of the holiday, even when Grandma Doris got impatient because her food was getting cold. When I was asked to speak today, I got in touch with my parents, my brothers, Alan and Jack, to share their unique thoughts and memories of my uncle. My father shared a very special bond with my uncle. He referred to Uncle Ronnie as his moral and religious center. They shared the same vice, the love of a beautiful pen. My father vividly remembers the first time he noticed Uncle Ronnie admiring one of his pen purchases. A conversation shortly ensued, and a 26-year tradition was born. For every event that Uncle Ronnie performed, whether a wedding, a bris, a bar mitzvah, a pen followed. Holidays, birthdays, pens were exchanged. Sometimes just because it was Tuesday, they traded pens. This summer, the congregation of West Deal named a brand new Sefer Torah in his honor. Sure enough, the inspiration for the casing of that magnificent Sefer Torah came from one of the pens that they exchanged over the years. These words are from my mother, Robin. So this is my addition to a beautiful life. I came to the realization that I had an amazing, astounding human for a brother. I discovered at a very young age that when most siblings of the opposite gender would be fighting and bickering, that was not the case. I remember lots of fun games such as sock basketball and mealborns. I remember my big brother, who would always make time to help me with homework and book reports, but he would never give me the answer. He would always encourage me to learn it by myself. About 8 years ago, I returned to work after my kids had grown. I was afraid and challenged by all the strange newness around me. But I figured it out for myself, just like my brother had encouraged me to do all those years before. A few weeks ago, my brother told me in confidence that he was amazed by me and that I was outstanding. Imagine that. The irony of a human such as he finding me to be amazing. Both my brothers, Alan and Jack, reminded me how we would always run downstairs at Uncle Ronnie's house to play ping pong, to see who's going to lose to him first. You see, we must have played over 100 games against him. Not once did we ever have a victory. But even with something as small and seemingly inconsequential like ping pong, my uncle always found a way to teach us a lesson. How to win with grace, how to treat an opponent with respect, and how to be a good sport. Alan, you must have been practicing. You've got so much better. Jackie, keep it up. You're doing fine. My Uncle Ronnie always had a way of bringing you up no matter the outcome of the game, and always with a smile. I just need to take a moment to mention his smile, because every time I think of him smiling. I think back to an old black and white video. We saw the young Ezra on the set of the game show at Giant Step with Burt Parks. We all sat around with my uncle and watched 7-year-old Ezra answer questions, win many prizes, and of course, smile. I can never forget that smile. It's the same smile he had as a child. It was the same smile he has as an adult. It was remarkable. My uncle was a brilliant scholar who mentored me and taught me many lessons. For the longest time, I wanted to teach my Uncle Ronnie something that he could use. Repay him for all the time he spent with me. Luckily, a few years ago, he was gifted an iPad, and he had no idea how to use it. Over the next few months, I had the privilege to walk Uncle Ronnie through all the numerous functionalities of that iPad. He learned how to do everything, from updating his calendar to Skyping with Sarah, Gavi, and baby Ezra in Israel. He would search articles, read numerous books. I was hoping that since he loved his iPad so much, maybe I could get him to give up his archaic Palm Pilot. But of course, Uncle Ronnie responded to me, Daniel, that's not going to happen. To Auntie Emily, Obadiah, Mordechai, Devorah, Micah, Sarah, Gavi, and baby Ezra. As a family, we want to thank you for sharing your father with us. You allowed him to play such an important, integral part in all of our lives. I see all of his best qualities in you. We love you all very much. I wanted to leave you with something that my uncle shared during the wonderful Torah dedication that we had this summer. And I quote, I raised the question, what is the message, the lesson that we taught over the last 30 years? It's the same message, that the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Almighty, created everybody with Tselem Elohim. It's amazing when you hear other people having absorbed this message, that we have to treat each other with dignity and respect. Every human being from every walk of life is infinitely precious to the Almighty. Every person in this room, in this Beit Knesset, in this community, in this world, created by the Almighty, is a unique person. No one is the same. No one is replaceable. Everyone contributes to the